Welcome to Pain with a Purpose, the podcast where we dive deep into the stories of resilience, redemption, and purpose. I'm your host, Chris Woods, and each week we will sit down with guests who have faced challenges with substance abuse, mental health, and recovery. But we're not just dwelling on the past. Instead, we'll explore what keeps them driven towards a purposeful life. Join us as we navigate the journey from pain to a purpose.
Welcome back to Pain with a Purpose, Season 1, Episode 16 with Alex Costa. Appreciate you coming out. Appreciate you, dude. I mean, I appreciate you getting on a flight and coming up here, you know, and then literally, I think you're flying out of here right after this.
Yeah,
so.
Man, I flew in just for this one reason and one reason only.
We
Most
appreciate
important reason. No, I appreciate you having me. I'm excited to be here.
So I haven't alluded to this at all to you yet, but like whether you know it or not, we actually have, you know, a few things in common. One major thing in common, our diet, right? Whether people know it or not, I don't really.
You're kidding me.
I don't wander off I know what works for me, and you know, I'll do a steak here and there, but like, yeah, what worked when I was a child, right? With like pizza, cheesesteaks, you know.
I won't do a steak. I won't do any cheesesteaks. No, but the process behind what you're talking about is the same. What worked for you as a kid works for you now. There's been no change.
Yep.
I eat today what I ate when I was 4 years old. There's very, very little difference. I might be another notch worse. There's no steak. There's no cheesesteak.
Really?
Yeah, man, it's pretty nuts. And so this is crazy for me in two ways. One, it's unbelievable that you have something similar going on because there's not very many people like us. Number two, clearly somebody's been talking about me.
A lot of people.
Yeah, we're going to talk after the show. We're going to find out.
No, but listen, a lot of my boys absolutely hate it, right? So like before I actually like found a career for myself and things of that nature, like I would, if I was getting a steak, I ordered it well done. I didn't know. So I didn't know how to order a steak. I didn't know like what I was doing. People would like, you know, say, oh, try this seafood. Absolutely not.
It's a struggle,
Absolutely
man.
not.
I mean, look, we're here to talk about recovery, but we could have a whole other podcast talking about the struggles of my life as a selective eater. I mean, my poor wife.
How does she feel about it?
So, I mean, she loves me. How could you not? But, you know, she's, I mean, it creates challenges, you know? So, I mean, again, I eat chicken fingers, cheese pizza, and all kinds of breads, you know.
Why do we get such a hard time though? Because like, I mean, it's all good stuff.
I mean, it's delicious,
you know,
and it works. So, you know, why kind of overcomplicate things is the way I've always thought, but I can't even bring myself to try anything.
Yeah, well, seafood just freaks me out. I mean, we could do a whole episode on like, you know, on anything. What about pasta?
Goldfish crackers is about as close to seafood as I'll get. So pasta is kind of a yes and no. Yeah, I'll do some pasta with a marinara sauce, but like not from anywhere, right? Like I'll eat my mom's. There's a few go-to restaurants that I know make it the way I want it.
Are you Italian?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the rest of them eat everything. The family,
I'm sure, yeah.
Mom cooks, grandma cooked. All my brothers, everybody eats everything.
They loved you growing up. Like, Alex, he won't eat it.
You know, and then they made me Eggo waffles. You know, when I'm talking about like when I'm 17.
Are you still doing Eggo waffles in the morning?
Yeah. Wife's got them in the freezer. We pop. You know, I like the little the cinnamon ones. They're in the 4s.
Yeah,
we'll throw some of those in. We'll
How
get a
much
little
butter
wacky
goes on
sometimes. So I mean, the right amount. Little syrup. You know, but I still get after Eggo.
Okay. Yeah, because that's like literally how I live.
Yeah, I'd probably not be alive if my wife didn't make me my special little smoothies every day. Or she's supposed to make them every day. She slacks sometimes, but believe it or not, as crazy as my menu is, as limited of the things that I'll eat are, I will drink like these smoothies that have like fruit and like green, like AG1 athletic greens and protein powder.
So you're getting it somewhere else.
I'm getting it, man. And she also, I get in my bag over there. I got all these vitamins she gives me. I don't know what, she could be poisoning me. Okay. I don't know what it is, but I take them. So like I get, you know, I get some nutrients.
People want to talk shit, but hey, it works.
It works for me. I'm still standing, man, and I've had a rough go.
I feel like you've had a rough past.
Yeah. I mean, we're just talking about my diet. I also used to do heroin and cocaine on a regular basis.
Yeah,
so.
It's like, you know, don't forget where you came from.
Yeah,
deal, you know?
Exactly, man. Exactly. So, wow, what a funny thing, man.
Yeah.
You got a fellow picky eater with me, man.
Listen, and I don't
Let's
know.
stick together.
It's only picky when I'm with other people.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know.
Good point.
You know,
Good
it's
point.
like, listen, mozzarella sticks go to, you know. Anyway.
Big time.
So you obviously went through a good amount of pain. to get on this show.
I sure did, buddy.
And I know that like when you were getting sober, you were like, you know what? I can't wait to be on Pain with a Purpose. But here we are.
I saw this in a dream.
So walk me through that, dude. When did you get sober?
Wow.
If you got sober, I don't even know. I don't know you from a can of paint.
Yeah, man. So I got sober in 2012. April 2nd, 2012 is my sobriety date. So I just celebrated 12 years back in April, which is
That's
just
awesome.
insane to think about because, I'm really one of those people that I mean it when I say like I couldn't stay sober for 12 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I know it like sounds like a little bit of hyperbole, but like on the days and the times that I would really try and like decide I'm going to stop doing this today, whether it's because like I wanted to, or whether it's because I knew if I didn't pass a drug test at court on Monday, I was going to go to jail. Like if I made that decision and wanted to try to stay sober, within a matter of minutes, my mind was already starting to figure out how, that wasn't going to be the case today. 12 years of sobriety is insane. 12 days of sobriety is insane. But yeah, it's been a wild ride.
I don't know how it is for you, but do you still feel like you just got sober?
Sometimes. Yeah. It's funny, man. I think it depends on the time of day or the day of week that you catch me, but sometimes I feel like it was yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I remember so vividly, like, what that was like, the good times and the bad. And like other times I feel like it was a different person.
I know.
Sometimes, man, I feel like it was a different life. I struggle to like accept and believe that like that was me and that I did that stuff. I mean, dude, I'm a very different person than I was when I was out there using. I mean, I'm the guy today that all my buddies are making fun of because I take too long to do my hair in the mirror. I mean, wearing this headset right now is bothering me. I forgot that there was going to be a headset
I'll
involved.
make sure that
I would have worn a hat. So
I'll make sure that I do some research on you and I find some like really good pictures of you. So like when we do this real,
do a nice cover.
I'll be like, this is what he really looks like.
So it's like that's me. Like I'm not really super confrontational these days. Like the nice guy, and I was a very, very different person. So again, sometimes I connect so closely to it, and it feels like it was yesterday, and I try to never forget how close I am to that person and how quickly I can go back. But other times, man, it does seem like it was another person.
And I don't know where the correlation is because I can relate to like the whole, like it feels like a completely different me.
Yeah.
And there's days where I'm like, I would never do that. Right. But then my truth is that like I do it. I don't even think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like I can live that life. I'm not above that life.
Yeah.
When I say like, I don't know what the correlation is. I don't know if it's like when I'm really on the beam with my recovery or if I'm just kind of
and it might be. And it might be.
Know.
I mean, and I don't even know that it's necessarily a bad thing. Again, it's been a really long time. That's number one. Number two, like I got sober when I was 20 years old. I never had a legal drink. And just life has been so incredible to me over the last 12 years. God has blessed my life in so many ways because I got sober and because of my program of recovery, that like, it's just hard sometimes to remember. I mean, what I can tell you is this, we say all the time, and I truly, truly mean it, that, I'm an arm's length away from a drink. And like, I know how quickly I can slip, fall, and end up back in that life. But I'll tell you something, man, I don't know if I could hang like I'm a different guy, bro. I think about some of the places I went, the people I was with, the things I did, to drink and get high. Bro, I don't know, man. I mean, I think that beast is still in me somewhere, but that's scary to this guy today.
Well, listen, and I don't whatever, some people would say that this is dangerous to have a conversation like that. I don't think it is, but like if I were to, God forbid, right? I know what direction I would go in first. I would try to do like the nightclubs or the bars or like, I try to be like this productive member of society that like looks like it's got, like I got it going on, but that's not me.
I mean, look, I think that's the path that a lot of people take. For me, buddy, I'm not drinking wine at dinner,
No.
I know where I'm going. I know what I'm doing. I know what works for me.
I'd like to think that I am, I have this like perfect picture of like me and my family. That's not me.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's the scary thing. And I share about this a lot, and, not a lot of people do, but, again, I've been sober for a long time. I did a lot of work, to have that miracle happen for me and to be able to get to where I am today. But God has also blessed me in he has a sense of humor to where like, even at 12 years of sobriety, man, like once in a while I'll be driving down the street or I'll be sitting around and I'll get like a fleeting, crazy little thought, man, that just reminds me real quick that it doesn't matter if I'm, 40 years sober. That disease is still inside of me. I am not like other people. I'm not like my fellows. I have something different. It's ingrained in my DNA. And it's, the old cliche, like it's doing push-ups in the corner waiting for me. It is, because if I can be 12 years removed from any drink or drug, which is longer than the amount of time I used anything for, and still, with this amazing life around me, my beautiful wife, my job, my home, incredible relationships with my family, and just randomly a thought can pop in my mind that like it might be a good idea to go shoot coke.
What a not a normal thought,
right, man? Right? So like, luckily today, all that is a fleeting, crazy thought, and I've done the work and have been blessed, to be able to literally recognize it as just that. Like, that's not that scary to me. I have the tools, I know what to do when that pops into my head, and I do it. And for me, it's been a blessing because, that's just me having the healthy reminder that I need, that I do have this thing, because I've seen so many people time and time again with periods of long-term recovery, real incredible lives that have been, built around them, and them go back out. And that's a really scary thing. And we were actually talking earlier about how like all of our struggles, the people in recovery, like have a purpose in some kind of a way. And like, and it's sad to say, but sometimes somebody else's struggles, while it's not good for them and that's horrible, it's a blessing, and has a purpose to the rest of us. Because when I hear about somebody that had time, that had a life, that went back out, that keeps me in check, man. And that reminds me, what I need to be doing here. And the same thing happens when I have that random, fleeting thought once a year, once every, 6 months or whatever it is, where I'm like, yo, dude, you are tapped. You're sober 12 years. You're active, in a program of recovery. You pray every single morning to be kept sober and turn your will over. And you just like thought, like you like started to like fantasize in your mind what it would be like to, take money out of an account and like find like how you would find a drug dealer and where you would go and what you would do. Like, you're cooked, buddy. And
you still got this thing.
You still got this thing. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, listen, and as much as this might pain a really good friend of mine's family to hear, right? But you talked about like everybody's, every one of us had like this purpose, right? And seeing like some of your good buddies or people that or even people that like are from afar and you're just watching, right? Like people that have built like these incredible lives.
Yeah.
And go back out, God forbid. A good buddy of mine, unfortunately, go back out. He had like a year at one point, right? But like, he never really stayed out, right? He continued and continued and continued and didn't really take the suggestions and wouldn't get the help for the mental health and all that stuff. Unfortunately, he did it, pass away. But like, this is like that was a huge stepping stone for this, right? Because, so like his purpose, as much as he had like many purposes, right? Like also played a huge, part in me creating Pain with a Purpose and finally coming to the conclusion of like, I don't really care what people fucking think anymore.
Right.
I'm going to fucking talk about
this.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because I too, got sober in AA and very much a believer of the 12 steps, very much a believer in the big book, very much a believer in like what worked for me. May not work for somebody else, but also what worked for me kind of contradicts this, right?
Sure. Yeah.
In like the fellowship aspect and like the meeting aspect and
sure.
Traditions. So, I definitely resonate with like, I think all of us have a purpose.
Yeah, I think so too.
So you got sober at 20, super young.
Yeah, I got sober at 20
now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
22.
Yeah, exactly.
So you got sober, what, 12 years ago?
12 years ago. Yep.
Don't live in Boston anymore.
No. So yes, I grew up in Massachusetts, about
Not
20.
Boston. Yeah.
Yeah. About 20 minutes north of Boston in the suburbs. I have to say that, like, if somebody random on the street was asking me where I was from, I tell them I'm from Boston. I have to say that because this podcast is getting popular, man. And it's going to get out there. So if like some people I know from back home see me on here, the comments will start lighting up. That kid's not from Boston. He's from, so I'm from, a town about 12 miles north of Boston, the suburbs in the North Shore. Yeah.
We got the same shit.
Yeah.
So people are like, I'm from Philly. You're like, you're from Ben Sound, dude. Stop.
Boston's not from Boston.
Yeah. All right. So you're from Massachusetts.
Yeah.
But now you live in Florida, right?
I do. I live in South Florida.
Okay. What does your recovery look like today? Right. Because I think like I think I need to do a better job of like, you know, kind of directing this to like, sure. Like,
I love that, man.
I'm coming up on 10 years. You just had 12. What's that look like? Right. Like, I don't, you know, cause if I'm not doing anything, I'm nuts.
Mhm.
Right. So like, walk us through that. Like, what's your recovery look like today?
That's awesome, man. Because, you know, look, I can definitely share some about my experience and what it was like, you know, before and all that. The reality is we could probably do 5 episodes because not unique in any way, have a million stories and a million crazy things, like we all do. But yeah, I think this is, you know, what's most important. Like, what does it look like, you know, for me today, is different than how it's always looked throughout my recovery. So, you know, I got sober in 2012. It wasn't my first time around. It wasn't my first time trying, but I had really been beaten into a state of reasonableness this time. And I by no means was perfect. I was a complete knucklehead and I did a lot of things wrong, but I had God blessed me with some willingness this time, which I had never experienced before. And in the beginning, that willingness looked like being willing to take some suggestions from people and like do some things that I wasn't comfortable doing before. And, you know, taking baby steps towards ultimately having the miracle happen in my life. And so for the first year and a half of my recovery, I was all in, like super gung-ho, super active in the community, took all the suggestions, you know, followed guys who had come before me, did the things that they did. And I was really, really active. And honestly, I probably carried that through year 3, year 4 to a degree. And then, you know, 5 years of sobriety, like had a life happening around me and a career and other things. And so like I remained active in, you know, the recovery community and the things that I needed to do to stay well, but it like came down a notch. Honestly, man, from years like 6 or 7 to 10, I want to be careful the way that I phrase this because I didn't do nothing.
We're about to get into it.
Yeah, so I didn't do nothing for my recovery. It's the wrong way to put it. I never got away from some of the key fundamental aspects of what helped get me sober, keep me sober, have this incredible miracle happen in my life, completely revolutionize my way of thinking and have that sort of like psychic change happen for me. So like I never got away from a lot of those core tools, but I did get away from giving back and I did get away from fellowship and I did get away from, you know, a lot of the other things that I think are so important. And that was kind of I don't know exactly, I never really tracked it, but there was a good like 3 to 4 year period where I was kind of away from the program, man. And I was kind of away from, you know, a lot of the things that, you know, we're constantly preaching to people that they need to do if they want to get sober. I never stopped praying. I never stopped praying to keep me sober. I never stopped praying at night to, you know, thank God for keeping me sober. You know, I did those things. I never stopped trying to seek God or grow spiritually. And I be careful the way I phrase this too. Like I never stopped trying to live right, you know, and right living. I made plenty of mistakes in my 12 years of recovery. You know, don't get me wrong. I'm not perfect, but you know, that integrity and that living honest and that trying to live clean coupled with, you know, my faith and reliance on a power greater than myself, I never lost, but I got away from the fellowship and a lot of service and that kind of stuff. And just a couple of years ago, I kind of found my way back into all of that and became, you know, much more active in my recovery again. And, you know, just to be honest, you know, not add any extra theatrics. It wasn't like my life was crumbling around me or, you know, my wife was going to leave me because I was such a miserable, can I swear?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm such a miserable asshole.
That's swearing?
I'm just getting warmed up. Okay. I thought this was a family show, so I didn't come, you know, ready for all that. But it really wasn't anything like that. You know, my life wasn't in shambles. I was nowhere near on the verge of picking up a drink or anything like that. I just kind of like had a moment one day where I was like, what are you doing, dude? It's like an hour out of the day. You know, I think you can be happier. I think there's another gear that you can kick into to be a better version of yourself. And you know where it's at. You know how easy it is to access it. And I wasn't incredibly happy at the time. Yeah. Again, my life today compared to how it was, it's, you know, my bad days are 6s today, you know, not 0s. And, you know, my good days are more abundant than my bad. But long story short, I just felt like, you know, it was time to kind of get back. And I did. And it's been the best thing that I've ever done. That gear did exist. That, you know, better version of myself was out there. And even though I thought I was fine before, I realized that there's a lot better than fine out there. And, you know, as a result, I feel better. I've been able to be of service to more people. You know, my connection to God is stronger, and, you know, my relationships in my life are better. So, you know, today what it looks like, you know, I got sober in, you know, fellowship that, you know, is founded in spiritual principles. You know, I believe that a power greater than myself restored my sanity and gave me the chance to get sober. I didn't do this on my own. I really didn't do that much at all. So, you know, for me, it starts with that. You know, it starts with, you know, prayer in the morning and prayer at night, and like reminding myself that it doesn't begin and end with me, and I'm not the one in control of this thing, and making sure that I'm asking for help, for me to be kind of carried through that, turning my will over. And by the way, the better life gets, the longer you're sober, the more abundance in your life and all the blessings that come in, the more you need that. By the way, it doesn't get much easier. Life gets full and life gets chaotic. And if you have a mind like mine, you know, it can get pretty difficult to handle on your own and carry it on your own shoulders. So, you know, it starts with that. It looks like trying to be available, you know, for somebody else who's suffering. You know, there's so much more that I could do in that area. You know, but I'm always available for it. And so I show up to venues and settings where I know that those people are going to be seeking that help. And I try to carry a message, you know, of this program and, you know, what helped me. And, you know, hopefully that can help another person. So it's trusting God, you know, and it's trust God, clean house, help others. Right. And clean house just looks like me constantly taking a look at what my life looks like, what my character looks like, what my integrity looks like, making sure that I'm nipping things in the bud. If I see myself, you know, developing bad habits or acting dishonestly or treating people a certain kind of way, I try to address that stuff. Right. And I try to stay good. And, you know, I try to be available to help others. So that's, I mean, in a nutshell, what it looks like.
You bring up like a really, really interesting point, right? With, you know, the longer that you stay sober, the more that we need this thing. And I say we because it's myself included, right? But I didn't track it. And I don't know if it's just because I did so much damage to myself before I got sober, but like, I'm just not good with timelines anymore.
Yeah.
But there was definitely a good period of time. And I confidently think it was anywhere from year 6 to 8, maybe, where it wasn't horrible. I wasn't thinking about drinking and drugging, right? But I wasn't happy either. Work was good. Family was good. Social media looked like everything was good.
Sure, yeah.
But I just was like, whatever, you know? And I just wasn't really doing much. But it's a really good point for anybody that, you know, may or may not be listening, but, you know, like, I don't know what it was when I got sober. I have a great idea of what it could have been. And it definitely was that window of opportunity, right? Where it was like, my ass was on fire and like, you could have told me to do whatever you and I would have done it. And I'm super blessed that like that obsession to drink and drug was relieved fairly quickly. I think also being around a bunch of sober guys played a huge part in that, because I was around guys that were all trying to do the same thing. And the sober living that we went to was like a no bullshit type of house. It was like, hey man, like you can pay rent and not get high and live dirty, like down the street, but not here. So like I went through all that stuff, but like, you know, the staying sober for years on years and, you know, and then still needing a program is huge, because like, I know that I still have this deal by the way that I'm acting at work, by the way that I'm thinking in my head when I'm driving. I know I still got this thing for sure.
Yeah. Like I say, like I was fine, but I'll tell you something, man. You ask my wife if she likes me better now or 2 years ago, it's night and day, man. So like we might think we're fine. We might think we're good. And like, you know, we might be, you know, but again, there's more there. And, you know, life gets good, man. And that's a loaded statement. You know, life gets good, life gets full. We're blessed with so much comes our way. But at the same time, like we need to be able to manage that. We're not normal people, you know, we're not like other people. So like that needs to be managed, you know, with some balance with like us doing the things that we need to do to stay sane and stay normal. Like I can go nuts, man.
Well, that's the thing. So you talked about like your prayer life, right? And what that always had remained consistent, whether you were fellowship and hitting meetings, whatever. What has stayed consistent for me, right? And it might look a little bit different, but mostly the same, was like in the morning to a T, right? I don't do it. I don't hit my knees, right? I'm not, there's going to be a lot of people that be like, you should be, you know.
Right.
I get it. But I do it in the shower when I start my day. And it's not like, hey, God, help me get another day, right? Because that obsession has been released.
Sure.
But what it does sound like is like, God, relieve me of this crazy head, because I know it's coming at some point. And it's not like, hey, when I'm fighting a drink or a drug, it's just like, it's just nuts up here. And the only reason that I ask for that is so I can be of use to somebody.
Right.
Right. Because if I'm just in my head all goddamn day, which if I don't, live by whatever I was taught, that's my default setting. And eventually I'm just like a zombie. It's just like, I'm out to lunch 24/7, or I'm judging everybody, or whatever the case is. So it's a really good point.
Yeah. I know all about that, man.
So what else, man? So did we even talk about, like, I know we didn't talk too much about like your drinking and drugging.
No, not at all. Yeah.
Which I don't think we have to, because I think we know you got it.
Yeah, I got it.
But so you went to treatment one time?
No, I didn't actually.
Okay.
So I went a few times. I wasn't that easy. I mean, I wasn't, I didn't go 30 times. Like, I know a lot of guys, man, that were in and out, caught up in this shuffle and just like couldn't figure it out. Luckily that wasn't necessarily me. I went to treatment 3 or 4 times. I also ended up in detox a few times, like local state-run places. For like a day or two, would meet some guys in there, and then we'd go do our thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, not that many times. So I actually went down to Florida originally for college, which is like hilarious because I was telling you about this earlier. I have no idea. I don't remember applying to college, but my mother, who's a saint, must have like.
She meant well.
Yeah, she must have had me apply to a couple of schools. Like I was pretty bad by the end of high school. And I'll back up. So, we talked about this earlier a little bit too, to where like when I talk about my story a lot, I rarely forget to acknowledge the fact that like drinking and drugging worked for me for a really long time. I'm not one of these people that are going to make it seem like it was all this darkness and pain and anguish from the beginning to end. Mm-mm. That wasn't the case for me, right? I have a progressive illness. And I also, I had a great childhood. Look, every family has their, quirks and dysfunctionalities, but I had everything that I needed and that I wanted. I don't drink because of any kind of trauma that happened in my life or any kind of compelling event or disorder or something. I learned about me that, I drink mainly because I like the effects produced by alcohol. Mm-hmm. I drink because I like to get drunk. I do drugs because I like being high. The problem is that I like it way more than normal people. Mm-hmm. And I realized that and learned that at a super, super young age. So like from the first time ever that I put something like that into my body, I knew right away, like, oh shit, man. Like I found it, man. This is what I needed. I don't want to ever live any other kind of way. And so like,
just got chills when you said that, because that's literally my same exact thought.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way it was for me. And again, progressive illness. So like for a ton of years, it was just fun, experimenting, making memories with friends, testing the limits, acting like an idiot. And then for another chunk of time, it was like partying too hard and harder than everybody else around me, and like starting to see some consequences in my life, but like not a drug addict, right? Like just a bad kid in high school. Mm-hmm. Kicked off sports teams and like starting to focus more on the partying and less on any of the other stuff that was going on in my life. But by the end of high school, I was like a drug dealer and like had already formed like an OxyContin habit. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that at the time. I thought I was just like a hotshot living the dream. Like, yep. Anybody listening who, is an opiate addict by trade, like they know that first year, whatever period of time it is, that's not like strung out heroin addict time. That's like you found a Superman pill that makes you feel better than you ever thought you could feel in your entire life, and makes you feel like you can conquer the world and do anything you ever wanted better than you could have before. Yep. That's the trick. That's the lie. That's the magic of opiates and what they do to you and why they destroy so many lives, and why, people from the outside looking in can't understand why somebody would keep going down this path and getting worse and worse. Because the way my brain's wired, when you give me that, I can't not want that for the rest of my life. So, I didn't know I was a drug addict. I didn't know I had this bad habit. We were selling drugs, breaking the law, doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and like using this stuff a lot. But like, I thought I could stop. It took me a long time to do like a first step, right? To accept that I was a drug addict. I did everything I could to justify that and delay that admission into the future. But by the end of that senior year of high school, like Low key, I already was. And so like high school ended, like some people around me were like going to jail or dying. And like some other people were just like going to be doing nothing with their lives. And I was like, all right, I'm going to move down to Florida and go to this college that I guess I applied to that I don't even remember taking the SATs, dude. I really don't.
You did well.
I know I was there.
Yeah.
But I did all right, I guess. And so I'm going to go down there. I know a couple guys from my hometown that are at that school. Like I'm going to get plugged in. It's going to be
where
great.
in Florida was it?
Lynn University in Boca Raton. So it's like a small private college that like, if you were like a C student in high school, but like your parents had some money, you could go. So it was like a ton of kids from Boston area, ton of kids from New Jersey and New York that just like parents were willing to spend 40 grand a year to send them down there and go to school, but like they didn't really have great grades. A lot of people would go there for like a year and then transfer to FAU. That was like kind of that was like what that school
but
did.
it wasn't a junior college. It was a university.
No, real deal college. They have like D2 sports and stuff. Like they're okay. Big international school, but it just wasn't very hard to get into as much as it like costs a little bit of money.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to go down there. I'm going to stop doing these pills. Like that ride's going to be over. I'm going to be the man in college. I'm going to make a million friends. I'm going to party. We're going to get this ship back on the right track. You know, that was kind of the plan and the goal. I got to college. My father flew me down, moved me into my dorm, the whole thing. Within like 2 hours, I realized I was dope sick. And I was like, oh, so this story's going to go a little bit different. Yep. And, you know, so fast forward, that's what that like first half of that year of college looked like for me, was just like partying like an absolute maniac. I never went to one class. I just lived there. And like sick people that we are, like I didn't even know that was like I was doing anything wrong. Like if you asked me, I'd be like, yeah, I go to class.
I'm here.
It literally never went. And it just like kind of progressively got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And like my habit was really bad. And long story short, I got arrested. I got arrested like down in the hood in Pompano by like back then the pill mills were a big thing. Yep. So they had these like opiate task forces in Broward County, Florida, because that's where a lot of those kind of pain clinics were. So they had these undercover like task force units that would like kind of roam the streets down there and pick people up and like try to get information and like all that kind of stuff. And so one day I was all right, fine. I'll get into the story a little bit. I was on my way down to the airport to fly home to go see my family for like spring break, May or whatever it was. And like I had been doing one of my like try to get off drugs on my own weeks, which looked like drinking a bunch and smoking weed and like doing Xanax.
Not doing opiates though.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I was on like day 3 and was like,
that's the day
I gave up. I was like, all right, I'm going to go get high. You know, we'll figure it out when we get up.
I made it 3 days.
So I called the guy. Long story short, I picked him up. We went into the hood. We picked somebody up. We dropped them off. We, undercover cop lit up like a Christmas tree behind us. Dog the bounty hunter looking dudes came out, threw me on the ground. So I ended up getting taken to jail and got put on drug court. I forget why I'm even telling this story. I think talking about the first time I was going to treatment. So I ended up getting put on drug court and I couldn't stay sober. So I got like stuck in Florida because I was on this drug court program now. I never went back to school to this day. I had that one semester under my belt with like 0 credits. And like I learned really quickly, I got a crash course in the you're a fucking drug addict class because I was in such denial leading up to that. But now, the kind of alcoholic that I am is that when you put these and this is the difference between that we were taught, the difference between a hard drinker and an alcoholic, right? We might look the same. We might drink and use the same. We might go to the same parties. From the outside looking in, we might be very similar. But when a hard drinker is faced with a major consequence, like for me, it was failing like 4 drug tests in a row for drug court and a judge telling me like, if you can't pass a drug test on Monday, you're going to Broward County jail for 45 days. I mean, a guy like me doesn't do great in Broward County jail. When a hard drinker's faced with that consequence, they can stop, or moderate. I can't. I have an inability to do so. I've tried everything. And I just drink, man. And I just use every single time. So ultimately, that's sort of the situation that I got myself in, which led to me discovering this idea of going to rehab as an effort to not go to jail. And so that's kind of when I came clean to my family and let them know that what was kind of going on with me, because they had no idea.
They had no idea.
Nah, man, I'm a master liar and manipulator.
When did they find out about that? Like you weren't at Lynn University anymore.
Yeah. So so they knew that I wasn't there. So they knew. So what happened was when I got arrested that time, I was supposed to be landing on a plane at Logan Airport in Boston, and my mother was supposed to be picking me up. I didn't show up. So like they found out I was in jail. My boy came and like bailed me out at 5 o'clock in the morning. I called mom on the phone. Hey mom, what's going on? Hey, nope, total misunderstanding. Nope, that's not what happened at all. You know, it's like these goofy kids that, you know, I met in class. We were driving around in the car and one of them had Vicodin on him. I don't know what
Can
he was.
Can you believe that?
You know, crazy. Wrong place, wrong time. Don't worry about it. It's all going to be fine. You know, I get put on drug court. There's a lawyer, everything. And like for 3 months, I'm doing this drug court thing, like dodging and weaving and you know, manipulating. And so like 1 strike, 2 strike, 3 strike, 4 strike. And then it's like, hey, you're going to jail on Monday. That's when like I had to pick up the phone and be like, so here's the deal. Like I got a problem with these things and I can't stop. And this was like nowhere near when I got sober.
Right.
Like I was just getting started. But like I had that moment, and my mother, the absolute saint that she is, this poor woman, my brother's also in recovery. The two of us put her through absolute hell. I don't know how she's still standing today, but she is, and she's just the greatest on earth. And she, with no prior experience in any of this, like snapped into action right away. And within an hour, like I was set up at a treatment center.
Yep.
And so like I went on a little run for 48 hours. I checked into that treatment center. And that was my first experience. I was nowhere near ready. I quickly found out what detox felt like, and that was cathartic. That was like a totally revolutionary experience that, you know, I had never been through before. It was hell on earth. And so like once I quickly was humbled and like, oh, you got a thing going on here, man. But like, I wasn't ready to admit that I was a drug addict. You know, I just thought I got caught up.
Was the thing that you were going through, or the thing that you had going on, was it just like, as long as I just don't put the opiates in my body?
It's exactly where I was at.
You know?
So like I went through hell and detox. I got quickly humbled that like this was a real problem in my life. I clearly had legal trouble. I had all these consequences happening. But that's exactly where I was at. Where I was at was, all right, man, I just got to get off these pills. That was dumb. I went down this road. We're going to clean it up. We're going to go have some beers with the boys. We're going to smoke weed. Everything's going to be fine. I'm going to be cool again. You know, everything's going to be awesome. But I was a full blown junkie already, dude. And I just didn't want to accept that. What I learned was I was petrified of being sober. I thought you guys' lives were boring. I thought, what could my life possibly look like sober?
There was nothing attractive that looked like getting sober.
Because I just didn't know, man.
Yeah.
You know, so I was really scared. So I fought for that. You know, I finished the rehab in 30 days, manipulated my family that like I didn't have to follow through with any of the aftercare recommendations. You just got to get me back into school. And like my parents were uneducated. They didn't know, man. So they were enablers, and they didn't want to accept that their, at the time, 18 or 19-year-old kid was a drug addict. So I was like, he's right. We got to get him back into school. They got me an apartment. I discharged from the treatment center, and within 3 hours, I was getting high.
Yeah, what a recipe for disaster.
3 hours getting high. So within 3 days, I was back in the treatment center. I went through again for a month. I spent most of the time in there, like, doing stuff to get high, because, like, I could not be with myself.
Yeah.
I had to get outside of myself. But I finished another month, and this time I manipulated him, told him we don't need to take the aftercare plans. The problem is Florida. I need to get back to Massachusetts. And they bought that. They got me back to Massachusetts. I manipulated the court systems in Florida to like create some kind of system where like, as long as I was enrolled in some kind of outpatient program up there, I was still, you know, fulfilling my duties to the drug court. And, you know, I got them to let me do my drug test at my primary care physician's office. Like that was a mistake. So I went up there and I went on a really bad run for a year, and I got introduced to heroin very quickly. You know, they taught me that it gets worse, never better, that I pick up right where I left off. You know, all of these cliches, all of these things that they told me. And I was like, shut up. Like, I'm not like these kids. Like, trust me, I got friends at home. Like, it's all going to be okay. That all happened in my life. So that's really when I took a first step. That's really when, you know, I accepted that I had what these people were talking about. And that it was like, I accepted that when I looked at myself and I was like, shit, man, they told you this was going to happen. You decided they were dramatic and crazy and that you're different from all these people. And then you got here. The first night you landed on the plane, when you got home, you were drunk. The next weekend, you were drunk and doing coke. The next week, you were relapsing on OxyContin, even though you had these drug tests and everything else going on. And the week after that, you were sticking a needle in your arm for the first time. And here we are. And so I went on a pretty vicious run up there, and, the incomprehensible demoralization that, our programs talk about, where like the lows keep getting lower, and, the depths that I'm willing to go get, worse and worse. And the things that I'm willing to try, and the never, I would never do that, starts to happen. All that happened in my life. And, I kind of realized where I was at, but, I swore off ever trying to get sober again, because I had tried, I had, been there, I had learned, and I just now had accepted what I had. And I was just like, I'm going to smoke this to the filter, and this is what it's going to look like for me. And like, this is how I'm going to go out, either soon or in a long time. This is what it's going to look like for me. And so, that's what I did, and until I didn't. So
I remember, and I spoke about it on one episode, right? But I two thoughts, right? When you talked about like the first or second or third relapse that I had tricked myself that I was like, oh, I made this decision, right? Like I was going to do this anyway. Yeah. And at some point, whatever relapse it was, I was like, there was like this revelation, right? Where I had just gotten high, and I was like, it worked, but it didn't. And I was like, fuck, I really do fucking have this.
Yeah, man.
Fast forward another couple of years later, and I'm still going in and out of treatment, and I'm like, this is it. Like, I mean, like, let's just like stop the fight.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this is your life. As well intentioned as I was brought up to be, or am, or, I know right and wrong. And, this whole time I meant well, but my actions completely said otherwise.
Yeah.
Scary times, dude, because then I remember going into treatment, and I was like, whatever.
Yeah, just tell me what to
send
do.
Me to Bucks County, whatever.
Yeah, just tell me what to do, because it's, it got really bad. It got really nasty. And like I said, I was never going to try to get sober again. Family started to educate themselves a little bit. I started getting cut off. Life got really worse. I was on my own. I was kicked out of the houses. I had stolen from everybody, all that stuff, that we've all done. And for me, it was no big jackpot or no big theatrical event that led me to going again. I was sitting there one day, it's no different than any of the other miserable, horrible days, that I was living. And I was just out of gas, man. Like I had no more juice in the tank. I was out of money. I wanted to get high again. And I didn't have the strength or the energy to figure out how to do that this time. There was no scam I was, ready to come up with to get my hands on some money. I didn't feel like scrolling through my phone book to see who I could call, manipulate, and
get a front, whatever.
I was just like beat, bro. And God blessed me with this moment of clarity, that I had. And, some people have heard people talking about being at this jumping off place, where you kind of can't imagine life with or without alcohol. And I was in this place where like, I, on one hand, couldn't imagine going on another hour living the way that I was living. I don't know that I would have made it another day or two. Like it was really bad. It was like 110 pounds. I had raccoon eyes.
Yeah.
I was doing a lot, and like, it was getting pretty dicey. So on one hand, I couldn't imagine going on like that. On the other hand, I could not imagine or fathom a life sober. I don't know which was scarier to me, but I had this moment of clarity, and I was blessed with this little ounce of willingness. And so I picked up the phone and called mom, cause that's what I do.
That's what we do.
That's what we do. We call mom, and, that was the only call she was willing to take at the time, was the I'm ready to go back call.
Yep.
And that's just kind of, where it began.
Yeah. And with that little bit of willingness, right? And then furthermore, I think that it's like we would be doing everybody a disservice, or ourselves a disservice, or again, whoever is or isn't listening. Like there was some action to be taken after that phone call was made, right?
Absolutely.
After I was sitting in a treatment center yet again for whatever time it was. And then furthermore, there was action that had to be taken when I was like sitting in a sober living, right? I couldn't just sit and get better by osmosis. Like there was some action that I had to do on the back end.
Yeah.
To this day.
Absolutely.
So, to keep it current, right? Like, what do you do? You just wake up, do your hair, and just look good, and that's how you.
Pretty much, man. That's kind of the long and short of it. But no, I'm happy you brought it to here, because like that's I'm here, right? Because hopefully somebody's gonna listen to this somewhere and like be able to identify in some kind of way, shape, or form with something that I've said, an experience that I had, a feeling that I talked about, and then most importantly, like whoever you are that might be listening, is to kind of hear, a little bit about like what we did and what happened. But again, a lot of that's God, a lot of that's being willing, open-minded, and following the footsteps of some people who came before you and just taking suggestions. Like, we'll show you the way. Like, just show up, be willing to take some action and get outside of your comfort zone. Like guys like Chris, guys like me, guys out there, like we'll show you how to get there, you know, and there's action that we take and things that we do and a lifestyle that we live that gets there. But just as importantly is to like just kind of talk about what it's like today. And in all seriousness, and it's cliche and we've all heard it, but in all seriousness, I have a life beyond my wildest dreams today. I never could have dreamt up or asked for a life close to as good as the one that I have today. And believe me, I had delusions of grandeur. Like I had big hopes and dreams for myself. Yep. And like, honestly, I never could have dreamt it up to be like this. I mean, you know, I talked a lot today about that fear of getting sober, especially as a young guy, and like not knowing what that was going to look like, thinking that life was going to be boring. You know, I honestly thought it was going to look like going to meetings, watching Jeopardy on TV and going to bed early and like reading or something. And it sounded like a nightmare. And I was a chaos addict. That was not my experience. My life in recovery over the last 12 years, when you do the work and you get a relationship with a higher power that can keep you sober on a daily basis, and you're blessed with this gift, I'm promised that I'm able to live life as a free man, that I'm able to walk where free men go, that I'm able to do any of the things that I want to do. And that is what's come true for me today. You know, the most important stuff is like I have a relationship with God. I have relationships with my family today. These are people that I terrorized and disappointed and hurt and lied to. Today, that's not the case. I get emotional sometimes talking about it. But, you know, today my mother is my best friend. I'm the person that my mother calls when she's having a hard time or she's struggling with a problem or she doesn't know, you know, what to do in a situation and she needs some support. I'm the guy she calls. You know, my grandmother passed a couple of weeks ago. She was 106 years old. She lived an incredible life. She was like the matriarch of our family. She was like a second mother to me. And like, I gave a eulogy at that funeral. They wouldn't have wanted me within 100 yards of that church.
You would have been in the back pew.
Back pew. Family would have been embarrassed about me being there. I would have been looking for purses. And like, that wasn't me. Like I stood up and I gave a eulogy there. You know, my brother got married a year or two ago. I was his best man. I stood up there at the altar with him. You know, people want me in their lives today. And my relationships with my family are just so valuable. And that's because I am sober. Those are the relationships I go after first and look to destroy, when I'm drinking and doing drugs. I have a beautiful wife today, who I drive absolutely insane and who drives me absolutely insane. But who loves me, you know, like that's crazy to think of. You know, I have that and we have an incredible life together and, you know, it's just, you know, I was able to have a wedding with her and have, you know, 150 people want to be there, you know, to be at my wedding and support us.
Side note.
Yeah.
But needs to be said. Did you have the open bar?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, look,
but hold on now. What a contradiction. Right. But, and I say that like facetiously, right? But like, you know, my wife and I are both sober, right? But like, there was no way we were not having an open bar.
Right.
Family would have never came.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
But it wasn't like her or I were just like staring at the bar the whole time. Like, oh,
I don't even like, you just asked that question. I was like, yeah, I think so. Like, I don't know.
You know, it's like, you know, you talked about like, you know, if I stay close to him being God and perform his work well, I'll be safe and protected and I can go anywhere and do anything as a free man. You know, people have like thoughts galore, right? About triggers. And if you go to the barbershop too, you know, eventually going to get, you know, I can have my drug of choice. And I have, because I've worked, you know, I work in drug and alcohol.
Right.
I've had my drug of choice in my hand. Right. And for my heartbeat not to change at all. And it just be exactly what that is, not what used to run my life. You think that's just because I just grew up?
Yeah. No
way.
It's not willpower.
Mm-mm.
It's not you smartened up. It's, you know, it's a lot bigger than that. And, and, you know, that's the truth today, you know, and that as far as the rest of my life, looking the way that it does, I go wherever I want, man, you know, bachelor parties, crazy vacations. I've traveled the world. I've been in all kinds of situations and like, you know, God's always had my back and my sobriety stays, you know, in the forefront and that's just what it is. I mean, I've just been blessed in so many ways. I have an incredible career, a fulfilling career that I have purpose in. I've had all kinds of success. I have friends, I have good times, I make memories, I have things to look forward to that I can be excited about. So, my life in recovery has not been boring. It's been crazier and wilder and full of more variety than I ever could have imagined. And I truly wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. And I'm super grateful, super grateful.
Side note, if you're looking for a house, I told you that I was doing my research on you.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah.
What is it? Costa
Group.
The Costa Group.
Yeah.
Is it a mortgage lending company? What is it? Just
so
real estate?
we're realtors. Yeah. So my wife and I, like a year or so ago, year and a half ago, whenever it was, we're like, and I'm a really busy guy, not to like toot my own horn, but I have this crazy thing where it's like, even though I feel like I have absolutely no capacity and space for anything more in my life, I'm constantly just like need to add things. And like, we were just feeling like we wanted to do something together, and wanted to get like a little side business going. So, we got licensed to be realtors. And yeah, that's what we do. So, like you said, if anybody's looking to buy a house, sell a house, we're like licensed in Florida. So, that's kind of the focal area. But, if you're in need of any of those services, we're here to help. She's an absolute beast.
Well, I'm sure she is if she's got to put up with you.
Yeah.
But I mean, so I had somebody, and we'll keep going. I don't even know what time it is. We got a couple minutes, whatever.
You got a timer on there?
Nah,
I feel like we might have been here for 2 hours.
Nah, maybe. No, we're going pretty good.
Good.
We did lose one camera though. Whatever.
I noticed. I just kept it rolling, man. I'm a pro.
Well, that's
I like this view anyways because it's a little less like on my gut.
Well, that's the reason for that one though. You know what I mean? Because we need the shot.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it comes out okay.
It will.
Yeah.
But I don't even know what I was talking about. So one of the episodes I did, this guy named Tyler, right, that I super respect in recovery, and he does a different fellowship than us.
Yeah.
But like he talks about like doubling down. Right. He talks about like, everything that you've gotten up until this point, everything that I've gotten up until this point, professionally, personally, the whole nine, and pouring it back in. Right. And like literally doubling down on everything. And like, it sounds like that's what obviously like what you're doing too, even though that like, it was a thought, you guys wanted to do something together, we can always be tired, but like we can always
keep
do
going,
more,
man.
So it's the same question that I ask everybody else. I'll ask you as well. Although if anybody's listened to this the entire way through, it's pretty apparent of what the, the purpose is, right? But like, what's the purpose, right? Like, what's the whole purpose of like, I'm a firm believer that I didn't go through all the shit that I went through, right? For it not to mean something.
Yeah.
But like, why did you experience all this goddamn pain, right? Like, what's the purpose behind the pain? Yeah,
man. I mean, look, we could have a whole episode on that, right? There's just so much to unpack and talk about inside of that. But I believe like one of the, reasons I believe I went through what I went through, all the pain, everything else, because it ultimately led me to, being able to have an experience that changed the way that I think about the world, changed the way I act, what I think, the purpose for me in life is. And, as a result of that, it gives me the opportunity to be, and it's like, I sometimes feel uncomfortable saying this, but like to be an example to other people. And, we talk about attraction rather than promotion. I'm not a preacher. That's not what I am. But, in just the 12 years, that I've been sober, there's been a lot of people that have seen, the kind of life that I live today. And they knew what I was like before. And that's attractive to them. And they want to know how that happened. And they do reach out to me, looking for help. And I've been blessed and had the opportunity, over the years to be able to introduce, some people to this way of life. Some of them have stuck it out. Some of them haven't. But I think there's a lot of purpose, behind why maybe I went through what I went through. And some of it I may not be able to understand, and maybe I'm not supposed to. But I think partly it was to give me a relationship with a higher power and understand, that's really why I'm here. And I don't think I otherwise ever would have, because I was so selfish and self-centered and self-absorbed. I really did think I was the center of the universe. And like, I understand today that that's not the case, even though sometimes I might act differently. So I think partly it's that, and partly it's to be able to help other people. And like I said, some of that looks like service, and getting alcoholics and drug addicts help, and showing them that there's a different way of life. But sometimes it's the simple things that we overlook a lot. And some of the stuff that I talked about before, like my relationships with my family, being able to be a good husband today, being able to be a good friend, brother, son, all of those things, that's purpose. I think life is all about relationships. I think those are our best kind of like battlefield and test to fulfill our purposes, here on earth and be the best kind of people that we can be. And, going through what I went through and finding the solution that I found, led me to be able to care about that kind of stuff and have that kind of stuff in my life. So maybe a little bit of a complicated answer to understand if you're not quite there right now, but
I mean, I'm there. It was a perfect
Yeah.
answer. I'm like literally perfectly said. With all that being said, right? Like, if you like what we're saying, smash that like button.
smash it.
I
Smash it.
absolutely hate saying it.
Like and subscribe.
Listen, like and subscribe. We need the support. Love the support. Like I said, Alex literally came up here for nothing other than this podcast. So I mean, like, that was, it speaks volumes of the character that you are.
Thank you.
But yeah, we are on YouTube, Apple, Podcast, Spotify, Instagram, Pain W Purpose on Instagram, Pain with a Purpose podcast on everything else. But yeah, anything else you want to say before we shut it down?
No, not really.
All right. Again, man, I really do appreciate you coming out. And with that, we will be with you guys next week. So see you then.